Welcome to Millennium News 24/7 Daily Local News Update. I'm your host, Jasmine McTague, live, Jersey City, New Jersey, with details at this time. Don't let the warm start to Friday fool you. Temperatures are expected to plunge later in the day, setting things up for a potentially dangerous icy evening commute. A cold front will slowly move through the area Friday, bringing frozen precipitation and colder air into the region. A winter weather advisory is in effect through Friday evening for New York City, northern New Jersey, and the Hudson Valley, and western Long Island. We can expect rain changing into freezing rain later Friday morning into the early afternoon, moving from the north to the south. Temperatures that started out in the high 50s Friday morning will fall through the day into 40s, then to the low 30s by the evening commute. Taking the wind chill into effect, it could feel even colder. The all-day rain combined with this dramatically dropping temperatures could likely be a receipt for icy, risky roads. Things remain frigid on Saturday, but at least it will be mostly sunny and clear. High pressure brings Arctic air back into the region with high temperatures of 27 in the city and mid-20s for the suburbs. Sunday will be partly cloudy and cold once again as high pressures remain in control of the weather. The high temperatures will be 32 in the city and in the low 30s in the suburbs. Monday will most likely cloudy with temperatures in the upper 30s for the most of the region. Tuesday will be cloudy with the chance of scattered showers as a storm system passes offshore. The high will be around 40 degrees in the cities and low 40s in the suburbs. Wednesday will be partly cloudy and milder as high pressure moves offshore and wind shifts to the south. The high will be 45 in the city and in the upper 40s for the areas outside of the city. Thursday will feature a mix of sun and clouds with continued above average temperatures. The high will be around 48 for the city and nearly 50 degrees in the suburbs. Looking forward to those warmer temps. On to our next story of the hour. The former Chicago police officer was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 81 months or 6 years and 9 months in prison for shooting and killing of Laquan McDonald in 2014. But he will have served less than half that when he is released. Videos of the shooting from the police dashboard camera released more than a year later was a key piece of evidence in the trial and inflamed public reaction across the country. His release is not considered special treatment, but is based on the static rules that allows anyone to be released after about half their time with good behavior. Law enforcement officials told the I-Team he was flown into Illinois last Friday from a facility not under stated control, perhaps another state or federal lockup. He was released from Taylorville's Correctional Center near Springfield at 12:15 a.m. Thursday, and IDOC spokesperson said. Van Dyke does have to report to state probation. He also can't leave the state during the 3-year supervised release period. There is still the unanswered question of whether the U.S. Justice Department will now charge Van Dyke with violating Laquan McDonald's civil rights. There has been a federal investigation underway, but so far no charges and no indication of imminent charges from the DOJ. The ABC7 I-Team has learned that top security officials in Chicago even met with downtown businesses officials to discuss security concerns in the event of any civil disturbance. On to our next story of the hour. On Thursday, around midnight, San Francisco firefighters responded to a 2-alarm fire at 1336 16th Street home to Taqueria Los Coyotes, Southwest reports. The fire was likely caused by debris in the alley outside the building. San Francisco's fire department, it was originally reported as a one-alarm fire, but the second alarm was caused after the fire extended into the building, sending 2 residents in the apartment upstairs from smoke inhalation. San Francisco police chief says he will no longer cooperate with the district attorney on police shootings on Wednesday. San Francisco Police Department Chief Bill Scott notified District Attorney Chasey Bodden that San Francisco PD will no longer cooperate with officers involved shootings and use of force incidents. The KRON4 reports. Scott ended the SFPD's Memorandum of Understanding for the DA's office, which dates back many years and was renewed in July 2021 to independently investigate officer-involved shootings. The MOU's termination takes effect in 15 days. The chief's decision was influenced by a January 27th San Francisco Superior Court hearing that determined the DA's office was not complied under the MOU's provision when an office investigator testified that she misled police investigators about a criminal investigation into a domestic violence incident. The investigator had withheld evidence from sworn affidavit. On Thursday, Baldwin held a press conference and responded to Scott's decision, ABC7 reports. Since the MOUs between our office and SFPD went into effect, our office has made numerous progress towards reducing police violence against San Franciscans and particularly people of color, Barden stated. Financially plagued San Francisco Art Institute is merging operations and academic programs with the University of San Francisco, a private Jesuit university, the New York Times report. The 150-year-old school said in a news release Wednesday that the heads of the 2 institutions signed a formal letter of intent to merge their undergraduate and graduate arts program. The resulting program will be known as the San Francisco Art Institute at the University of San Francisco. And the University of San Francisco is expected to take over the arts school historical buildings, art and film collections, and assets, including a Diego Rivera gallery that holds valuable murals. I would love to see that. On to the next story. A Texas man with a history of violence towards his 81-year-old mother has been charged with killing her just days after he was released from jail, police said Thursday. Christopher Coggins, 52, has been arrested and charged with murder in the death of Laverne Coggins, police in the Dallas suburbs of Irving said. Irving police said that after forcing entry during a welfare check at home on Monday, officers found Christopher Coggins hiding in the attic and his mother's body inside a large zippered bag in the garage. In June, Christopher Coggins was charged with unlawful restraint. Charge was dismissed, and he was given deferred education on the injury charges. Conditions of his probation included having no contact with his mother. Police said they were waiting for a medical examiner to determine Laverne Coggins' cause of death. Christopher Coggins was jailed in Irving Thursday with bond set at $1 million. Jail records did not list any attorney for him. Now, a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News 24/7. Stay tuned.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Sorry about that. Welcome to Millennium News 24/7 Daily Local News Update. Here's the story of the hour. When conservatives fight one another over God and country, my general reaction is have at it and where is the popcorn? But the recent recall election in Shasta County that pitted a Republican ex-police chief against a far-right faction backed by a local militia is different. It's a wake-up call ahead of the 2022 midterm that the elections can go very wrong, even in liberal California. What happens in Reading should be a big blinking warning light to what's left of the mainstream Republican Party and to us all that we have an obligation as Californians to protect the elections across the state, not just the ones in our backyard. The far right has made it clear it hopes to target and drive out elected officials in places where their small numbers have outside power with the right mix of discontent, propaganda, and money. If those officials are replaced by ones willing to put ideology ahead of rules and democracy, we are going to end up with an actual election fraud, not the conspiracy sort. School curriculum straight out of the 1950s, and perhaps even the sheriffs and district attorneys more interested in power than law. That all may sound alarmist, but as Christopher Browning, a professor of Emeritus at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and expert on Nazi and Holocaust told me, there is a certain set of the far right that actually did learn something when they raided Congress a year ago. Violent takeovers are hard. Legal revolutions are easier and more effective. They realize that you can't just go out and storm the Capitol, but you can take a town hall after town hall, Brownie warned. He pointed out that the tactic has been used by authoritarians before, including Nazi Germany. The recall attempt in Schatzta has the veneer of a free and fair election, but there's slime under the surface. Like much politics these days, it has the pandemic that shook the fault lines open and exposed the ugly in Reading. It starts with the shutdown en masse in 2020. Through the 5 members of the county board of supervisors had no particular interest in enforcing Governor Gavin Newsom's mandated, widely unpopular here. The majority of them didn't rant and rail against them either. So while most of Shelter County went about life with businesses remaining open and mask rules enforced only in the loosest sense, a contingent of the outrage began showing up at meetings, charging their elected officials with bowing down to Kingism. Meetings turned into carnivals, not the fun kind, with speakers threatening violence, and some got in the idea to recall 3 supervisors who were deemed too liberal and too scientific of their approach to the pandemic. The Cottonwood Militia, an armed group of men who described themselves as civic leaders and helpers of local law enforcement, though law enforcement has said they're not affiliated, threw their might into the efforts. A film producer best known for religious music videos decided to make a glossy documentary full of slow motion horseback riding about it, hopeful a successful recall will provide a blueprint for other communities to do the same. On to our next story of the hour. A Pittsburgh man and woman are facing attempted homicide charges after an infant was hospitalized for injuries consistent with shaking last year. 24-year-old Tashawn Akir Williams and 25-year-old Tamia Harris were both charged with endangering the welfare of a child, criminal attempt, homicide, and aggravated assault. Pittsburgh police say that on November 25th, 2021, officers responded to a local hospital of an infant with injuries consistent with shaking. The baby was in critical condition, according to police. Detectives determined that the injuries occurred while the infant was in the care of Williams and Harris. Williams and Harris turned themselves into the police and are currently in Allegheny County Jail. Now, next story of the hour. Police in Hopkinton, Massachusetts, are trying to identify a driver who hit a pedestrian, then left a man lying in the street last month. Hopkinton's police said the crash happened on January 22nd on East Main Street near Ray Street, sometimes between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. The driver left the victim lying in the street, according to the police. The victim was taken to UMass Memorial Medical Center for treatment. He was wearing an orange hooded sweatshirt at the time of the crash. Police released surveillance image of what they call a vehicle of interest, and they said identified the vehicle, but no arrests have been made. The investigation is ongoing. The Massachusetts State Police Coalition Analysis and Reconstruction Section, the Crime Scene Service Section, and state police detectives were called in to assist. On to our next story of the hour. Atlanta police are releasing surveillance videos of a chase that ended with an arrest of two suspects seen trying to break into a car. Officers say that they saw two men trying to break into a parked car in Greenbrier Parkway. After being spotted, the men drove away, but their SUV was later seen on Oak Street. Police tried to pull over the suspect's SUV, but they again sped away. The video released Thursday shows the suspect speeding away from police and driving recklessly through the streets of southwest Atlanta, all while being followed by a police helicopter. During the chase, which happened last week, the two suspects got out of the SUV in a nearby neighborhood. The helicopter followed the driver through the woods and points officers to his location. Body cam footage shows officers find the driver hiding in a shed in the neighborhood and arrested him. And now a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News 24/7. Stay tuned.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome to Millennium News 24/7 Daily Local News Update. And now the story of the hour. When helicopters carrying some 50 U.S. commanders dumped onto the grounds in Syria an hour after midnight, the raiders confronted a house full of extremists and children. Baby confronts were inside, and stuffed bunnies, a blue plastic swing, a crib. So was the paraphernalia of violence, such as bomb Abu Ibrahim al-Hashimi al-Qurayshi is said by U.S. officials to have used to blow up himself, his family, and perhaps others in his immediate proximity. It was an all-Jewish raid in an extremist stronghold of northwest Syria, months in the works and executed with the understanding that children might die, as well as hunted its chief if the building's occupants did not get out when given the chance to leave. The apparent suicide bombing came before or early in the 2-hour gun battle Thursday. First responders said 13 people died, 6 of them children. No U.S. commandos were wounded, military officials said. President Joe Biden, who ordered the raid, said the world is rid of a man he described as the driving force behind the genocide of the Yazidi people in northwestern Iraq in 2014. When slaughtered, wiped out villages, thousands of women and young girls were sold into slavery and raped, was used as weapons of war. Over months of planning, U.S. intelligence first had to locate al-Qurashi whereabouts and understand his movements or lack thereof. They concluded he rarely, if ever, left the family's third floor quarters except to bathe on the building's roof, anticipating that al-Qurashi could, well, choose death by self-detonation if cornered by U.S. forces. U.S. officials commissioned an engineering study from afar of the 3-story cinder block building to see if it would collapse in that event and kill everyone inside. They concluded that enough of the building was likely to survive such a blast to spare those not near him. They constructed a tabletop model of the house in December and set it up in the Situation Room, an ultra-secure White House command and communication post where the president and their national security aides manage crisis. The second floor of the Syrian house, also white, was occupied by the Little Red Gate Islamic State leaders and his family. The ground floor, partly a basement, housed a family unconnected to the Islamic State and unaware of al-Qurashi's presence or significance, the U.S. official said. Biden was first briefed in depth more than a month ago by operational commanders after U.S. forces were satisfied they would find al-Qurashi, also known as Haji Abdul, where they did. On to our next story of the hour. The French president and the German chancellor will head to Moscow and Kyiv in the coming weeks, adding to the diplomatic efforts to try to deter Russian President Vladimir Putin from launching an invasion of Ukraine and find a way of the growing tensions. Finding out a way of the growing tensions. France's Emmanuel Macron is scheduled to visit Moscow on Monday and Kyiv on Tuesday, while Germany's Olaf Scholz will travel to Kyiv on February 14th and Moscow on February 15th. The high-level visit comes as China has backed Russia's demand that NATO be precluded from expanding to Ukraine, and after the U.S. accused the Kremlin on Thursday of an elaborate plot of fabricating an attack by Ukraine forces that Russia could use as a pretext to take military action. The U.S. has not provided detailed information backing up the claims, which Moscow has vehemently denied. While France is a major player in NATO and is moving troops to Romania as part of the alliance preparations for a possible Russian action, Macron has also been actively pushing for dialogue with Putin and has spoken to him several times in recent weeks. The two will hold a one-on-one meeting Monday, Macron's office said. Macron is following a French tradition of striking a separate path from the United States in geopolitics, as well as trying to make his own mark on this crisis and defend Europe's interests. Germany has emphasized the importance of various diplomatic formats in tackling the tension and has refused to send weapons to Ukraine, irking some allies. Scholz also has faced criticism at home lately for keeping a low public profile in the crisis. After weeks of talks, various diplomatic formats have led no major concessions by Russia and the US. It's unclear how much impact the trip will have. But Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba said Friday that top-level visits seriously reduce challenges in the sphere of security and upsets the Kremlin's plans. In a call Wednesday with U.S. President Joe Biden, Macron filled him on his diplomatic efforts. In talks with Russian and Ukrainian leaders Thursday night, Macron's office said they discussed ways to identify elements that could lead to de-escalations and conditions for strategic balance in Europe, which should allow for the reduction of risk on the ground and guarantee security on the continent. Schultz has previously planned meetings with Biden in Washington on Monday. Moscow has been signaling an apparent readiness for more talks with Washington and NATO in recent days. Some experts say that as long as Russia and the West keep talking, that's a reason for cautious optimism. On to our next story of the hour. The U.S., Britain, and a handful of others aren't sending dignitaries to Beijing's Winter Games as part of a diplomatic boycott, but the Chinese capital is still attracting an array of world leaders for Friday's opening ceremony. Russia. President Vladimir Putin is meeting Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping ahead of the opening ceremonies, underscoring closer ties between Beijing and Moscow as they both face Western criticism and pressure. Egypt and Serbia. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and Serbia's Alexander Vučić have growing frictions with the West over the authoritarian politics and human rights record. Both leaders have gravitated towards China. Vučić called Xi his brother for supplying Serbia with respirators and vaccines. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, AUE, Beijing Gulf relations are above all about energy. China is Saudi Arabia's largest buyer of oil and a major customer for Qatar's natural gas. Saudi's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the kingdom of de facto leader, is appearing at the Winter Games as an investor, and some governments signal warming relations after the 2018 killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Central Asia. The leaders of all 5 former Soviet republics in Central Asia are heading to Beijing, highlighting the region's increasingly close ties with China. Kyrgyzstan. President Sadir Zaparov pushed last month for revival of a long-delayed project to build a railroad from China through his country to Uzbekistan. China is Turkmenistan's only reliable major buyer of natural gases. Argentina and Ecuador. Argentina is set to become the first major Latin American country to join China's Belt and Road initiatives. President Alberto Fernandez is also expected to discuss China's help building Argentina's first nuclear power plant since 1981. President Guillermo Lasso is seeking to renegotiate Ecuador's $4.6 billion debt with China. United Nations. Secretary General Antonio Guterres and the WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus will attend. The IOC is a close partner of the UN, Guterres said, and the Olympics brings together people with a message of solidarity and peace. This is a message that, in my opinion, is more relevant than the political circumstances that exist in the countries where the Olympics takes place, he told the Associated Press. On to our next story of the hour. A third day of efforts to rescue a 5-year-old boy who fell into a well in northern Morocco was halted for a time Friday, following concerns about ground stability, fueling despair among those hoping to reach him. The boy, identified as Ryan, fell into the 32-meter, 150 feet deep well located outside his home in the northern village of Ikram in Morocco. Chief Jawazin province of Tuesday's evening. Digging has stopped momentarily out of concern of the ground surrounding that the well could collapse. Rescue committee members Abdullah Hadi Tamarani told local televisions 2M. Search crew used 5 bulldozers to dig vertically to a depth of more than 31 meters, according to Morocco's official MAP news agency. Preparations are underway to start digging horizontally to create a pathway to reach the trapped boy, MAP said, adding that the experts is topographical engineering were called upon for help. Rescue workers use a rope to provide oxygen and water to the boy, but were unable to reach him via the hole where he was trapped due to a narrow diameter. Medical staff, including specialists in resuscitations, are on site to attend to the boy once he's pulled out, with the helicopter on standby to transport him to the nearest hospital. Moroccan government said Thursday that all efforts are being made to help save the boy. Moroccans took to social media to offer their hope for the boy's survival using hashtag Save Ryan, which has brought global attention to rescue efforts. I pray and beg God that he comes out of that well alive and safe. His mother, Wasimia Karchich, told 2M, please God, ease my pain and his in that hole of dust. And now a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News 24/7. Stay tuned.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome to Millennium News 24/7 Daily Local News Update. Now the story of the hour. Chinese President Xi Jinping has backed Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in his standoff with the West over Ukraine as the two leaders met before the opening ceremony of the Winter Games in Beijing. The leaders used a pointed statement to call out what they called a minority on the world stage for advocating and unilateral approaches to the resolving international problems and resort to military policy. Meanwhile, The leaders of Europe Union, powerhouse France and Germany announced plans to head to Moscow and Kyiv soon for talks aimed at easing tensions. Here are the things to know Friday about the international tensions surrounding Ukraine, which has an estimate of 100,000 troops massed along the borders. Putin met with Xi before the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics in Beijing, and the leaders issued a joint statement highlighting what is called the interference in the internal affairs of other states as Russia amasses troops on its borders with Ukraine. Some forces representing minority on the world stage continue to advocate unilateral approaches to resolving the international problems and resort to military policy. It read in a thinly veiled reference to the U.S. and its allies. The meeting came amid fear in the West that tensions between Russia and Ukraine could spill over into armed conflict. On Thursday, the U.S. accused the Kremlin of an elaborate plot to fabricate an attack by Ukrainian forces that Russia could use as a pretext to take military actions against its neighbor. So our next story of the hour. When the U.S. and NATO rejected the Kremlin's security demands over Ukraine last week, fears of an imminent Russian attack against its neighbors soared. But instead of sending arm raids across the Ukraine borders as the U.S. and its allies worried, Moscow bombarded Western capitals with diplomatic letters about an international agreement that the Kremlin sees as a strong argument for its position in the standoff. Even though President Vladimir Putin said a month ago that he wanted a quick answer to the Russian demands and warned that Moscow could not accept idle talk. Earlier this week, he signaled an apparent readiness for more talks with Washington and NATO. And that offers a glimmer of hope. Although more than 100,000 Russian troops still hover near Ukraine and weeks of talks have led to no major concessions by either side, at least Russia and the West keep talking, and for some experts, that's a reason for cautious optimism. On one hand, Putin did fire rhetoric barbs against the West, emphasizing perceived slights. On the other hand, he also did leave open the possibility of talking in more details about at least some of the issues where the West has been willing to engage, said Jeff Rethink, the former U.S. diplomat and president of the American Institute of Contemporary German Studies at Johns Hopkins University. We're kind of where we were a few weeks ago, Reth said. Putin has kept his options open. He's not ruled out talks, but also not reduced his stringent rhetoric. Russia and the West remains far apart on most critical issues, and it's unclear how the compromise could be reached. But the Kremlin recent emphasis on diplomacy appears to reflect Putin's hope to achieve his goals through negotiation while using a deployment of troops near Ukraine as leverage. Russia will maintain a tough stand while indicating that it's not studying the doors to talk, said Luke Kayanov, who heads the Moscow-based Council of Foreign and Defense Policies and closely follows the Kremlin's thinking. Such complex agreements aren't reached in relaxing atmospheres over a cup of tea. So all methods of persuasion are being used, including the demonstration of force. Russia maintains it has no intentions to attack its neighbors, but It demands that NATO bar membership to Ukraine and other ex-Soviet nations and pledge not to deploy weapons there. It also wants NATO's deployment in Eastern Europe's rollback. That's a lot. On to our next story of the hour. U.S. President Joe Biden joined Pope Francis in a leading Sunni imam on Friday in calling for greater global cooperation to fight the coronavirus pandemic, climate change, and other world crises on the second anniversary of the landmark Christian-Muslim Peace Initiative. The Vatican released a statement from Biden marking the International Day of Human Fraternity, a UN-designated celebration of interfaith and multicultural understanding inspired by the landmark document signed on February 4th, 2019 in Abu Dhabi by Francis and Sheikh Ahmed Al-Tayyib, the Imam of the Al-Azhar Center of Sunni Learning in Cairo. The document called for greater mutual understanding and solidarity to confront the problems facing the world. With the backing of the United Arab Emirates, and the initiative has gone on to create a high-level commission to spread the message. And Friday's anniversary celebration included a video message from Francis that was also translated into Hebrew. In his statement, Biden said, "For too long, the narrow views of our shared prosperity is a zero-sum game has festered. The view that for one person to succeed, another has to fail. Such a view," he said, "had led conflicts and crises that are today too big for one nation or people to solve. They require us to speak with one another in an open dialogue to promote tolerance, inclusion, and understanding," he said. Biden, a Catholic, met with Francis in October in a lengthy audience that touched on climate changes, poverty, and pandemic. "We all live under the same heaven, independently of where and how we live, the color of our skin, religion, social group, sex, age, economic conditions, or our state of health. All of us are different yet equal, and this time of the pandemic has shown that clearly," Francis said in his message. Al-Tayyib, for his part, issued a message reading, "My dear brothers," Francis and called him an insistently courageous companion on the path of fraternity and peace. "We have embarked on this path in hope for a new world that is free of wars and conflict, where the fear are reassured and the poor sustained and the vulnerable protected and justice ministered," he said. While such objectives are unacceptable for warm runners, he said, the road of peace is predestined for all that believes in God. On to our next story of the hour and final story. A South Sudan struggles for peace, to still cleaning up the deadly threat posed by thousands of landmines from previous conflict decades ago. Cattle herders, charcoal collectors, children, all have been victims of the long-forgotten mines that continue to make South Sudan one of the world's most dangerous countries for unexploded ordnances. The mines are a stealth problem among the country's more pressing ones, which include the slow recovery of the 5-year civil war and the worst floodings in decades, and hunger that is expected to affect more people this year than ever during the young nation's decade of existence. The explosives are a danger to fragile efforts at rebuilding and development. After a road construction company accidentally detonated an anti-tank mine last year, just 25 kilometers or 15 miles outside the capital, Juba, the mine clearing team was in the community of Gandokoro last month to safely detonate over a dozen more. The explosives were older than South Sudan itself, dating back to the 1980s, and a long fight for independence from Sudan. Independence came in 2011, but the remnants of the past conflict continues to kill civilians today. More than 5,000 South Sudanese have been killed or injured by landmines and unexploded ordnances since 2004, according to the United Nations Mine Action Service. More than 1 million explosive items have been found and destroyed in South Sudan during that time, the UNMS says. Hundreds of victims have been children, curious about sometimes toy-like objects they discover. South Sudan is one of 21 countries around the world, including several in sub-Saharan Africa, with the largest amount of mine contaminations among the signatories to the 1997 Mine Ban Treaty. The international watchdog group Landmine Monitor wrote in 2020. Even South Sudan relatively low literacy rate poses a risk as written warnings can go unnoticed and leaflets are reportedly thrown away, the group wrote. Worry residents of Gandukoro have seen other mines accidentally in recent years. The danger led them to reduce farming activities and access to water holes that have been used for cattle, a crucial part of the livelihoods of many South Sudanese. Resident Jacqueline Pawnee, 38, knows she's often taking a risk when she goes out to look for firewood or find food to feed her three children. And this was the daily local news update of Millennium News 24/7. Log in to get the latest news. All of our social networking sites, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is Millennium News 24. Also, our YouTube channel is News Channel M24. Viewers now on both networks broadcasting Androids and iOS devices, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, also all smart TV platforms. Please enjoy our entertainment, latest news, and views. Our Millennium TV app, Millennium TV USA Android, and Millennium News Google, www.millenniumnews24.com. Stay with Millennium News 24, and thank you for watching.